Well, welcome everyone. We're at a very pivotal time post lunch, so we appreciate everyone being here with us. Welcome, and thanks again for being here with us. My name is Joseph Davis. I'm Director of Communications here at the U.S. Chamber Foundation, and I'm really excited for this conversation with our panel here because we're going to talk about youth engagement, and it's one of the topics and one of the focus areas we have at the U.S. Chamber Foundation through our education and workforce programs. And we know providing youth the support and the guidance and the resources they need to grow and build a vibrant future is critically important. So we're going to talk about a few key aspects here today. So 3 things. We'll touch on mental health, physical health, and educational programming. But before we get into it, before we dive in, I want to make sure I give our panelists an opportunity to give themselves a quick intro, so we'll do that. And in the spirit of the World Series this week, Pat, do you want to play leadoff for us?
Great. Well, hello everyone. Enjoy your lunch. This is the perfect time to have our session. I guess we'll start with how are we going to set this up? Is that
Just an introduction, yourself, your role.
okay? Great. I'm Pat McCrummen. I lead community and social impact and STEM education at the DuPont company. We have about 85 sites around the world, and I'm based in Wilmington, Delaware. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Joseph. My name is Chelsea Antony, and I'm the Senior Business Counsel for the NFL Players Association. But here today, I'm really here in the capacity as a member of Gen Youth's Board of Directors. And I'm really proud of all the work that we've done to help end student hunger through well-nourished lives, nutrition, and physical fitness. Just really quickly, a little bit about Gen Youth. Gen Youth is a national nonprofit that was founded by the NFL and America's dairy farmers. So a really cool opportunity for 2 unlikely partnerships to come together, create this amazing program, and help lead the better lives of students' health and wellness. Thank you for having us.
Hi, good afternoon. Rich Santoro. I lead public policy and social responsibility for Pinterest. Was very appreciative and encouraged when Joseph and the Chamber reached out about this panel, given how top of mind the internet and particularly how it impacts youth mental health and both the challenges and opportunities. So certainly at Pinterest, we believe that the internet can be a powerful force for good. That certainly was kind of the promise if you think back 20 years ago. We've been working to try to provide a positive, inspirational, and safe space for our users, and particularly for youth, whether it's things like preventing or not permitting children under 13 from using the platform or keeping the platform private for those under 16. But all the work we know that we're doing cannot be done in a silo, and so we look forward to having a productive and insightful conversation and learning more about how we can work together. Thank you.
Awesome. So Rich, I'm going to stick with you for our opening question. Okay. So it's going to be a 2-parter. Understanding you all represent different areas of youth-related issues. So first, can you tell us 2 things? So what are any trends you're seeing right now in your issue area? Mm-hmm. And then the second part of that, was there any event, anything that kind of precipitated those trends?
Mm-hmm. So certainly the concerns and impact about how technology and the internet is influencing youth mental health has been a huge area of focus, and we're seeing, the trends there, the daily use of devices, the consumption of social media has just been exacerbating in recent years. And then, so, what does that mean for youth mental health? There was a recent Surgeon General advisory on social media and youth mental health that showed kids between the ages of 12 and 15 are more than twice likely to have negative mental health outcomes, including anxiety and depression. So that's kind of some of the unfortunate trends we're seeing. But on the positive side, we're also seeing in some of the work that we've been doing it was a University of Berkeley study that showed that 10 minutes on Pinterest helped Gen Z college students buffer against negative conditions such as burnout and stress. So we're kind of seeing both sides, but I think there's both cause for alarm, but also cause for opportunity.
Chelsea, how about you?
Yeah, I'll answer it like this. I think the urgencies are shown in the trends that we've seen based on data. So for us, just taking a step back, the focus is really twofold. One, on childhood nutrition, being well nourished and eating well. And then second, on physical activity and just being more movement active. So the data really is shocking, and certainly shocking to me, who didn't know about this until my work with Gen Youth. From a nutritional perspective, 1 in 5 students are living in food insecurity, which means they don't know where their next meal is coming from. And of all the 55 million school children right now in the US, 30 million of them are relying on school meals to be fed, to find that next meal. And so that was a really big number for me to see and for me to recognize there's work to be done here. On the physical activity perspective, only 1 in 4 children are meeting the daily minimum requirement of physical activity. And that's another shocking number. I think, to answer the trends, is kind of going in a decline, and whether that's because of the advent of different tech platforms and social media, which are great and positive, they've also forced children to kind of stay indoors, look at devices, and you no longer knocking at your neighbor's door to play dodgeball. It's just a different era. And so for me, with my work in sport, with the NFLPA, and my personal training background, I just have a personal desire and push to make this movement and help end, the lack of childhood non-movement, really. And so I'm really, really excited to help continue to push that. And we have a lot more work to do, and we've done some great work, but there's more to be done.
Okay.
Great. You may heard, if you were in here for the last session, Amy Nakamoto mentioned that STEM work tends to be hyper-local. We have a partnership with Discovery Education that's been really successful. But what we're walking into at DuPont is we've been around in Delaware for 130 years and as a company for 225 years as a high science company, trying to create the next generation of innovations for the world. The challenge for us is part COVID, part underrepresented students not having the same opportunities. So, when you walk into something like that, you try to solve one thing at a time. So the state of Delaware is about 1 million people. It's a small state. 2,200 nonprofits doing all kinds of different things. Some are duplicative, but some are really important to an ecosystem that we can use and leverage as DuPont to start to make that meaningful difference in the state. Delaware's 47th in math, 45th in science. There's a number of reasons for that, but working together with the state, we're trying to figure out how we solve for that and try to help. But the one thing that we can do as a company, we look at this from a shared value model perspective. What's good for the company is good for the community, and what's good for the community is good for the company. So we think about that in terms of, for example, career and technical education. It's on the rise. We need pipe fitters. We need electricians. We need the kids that are coming out of tech school to support all of the work that we do. So we're trying to look at this from multiple fronts, and I can share more later.
Awesome. So thinking about the trend, so I want to talk a little bit more about the work itself. So Chelsea, I'm going to kick it off with you first, but tell us a little bit more about the programs that your organization is currently working on.
Yes, happy to. So there are a few programs. I'll touch on 3. Again, each of nutrition, physical activity, and then I'll talk about a third, which is the really unique part of Gen Youth, which is our youth council. But from a nutritional perspective, what we really do is provide resources and equipment to schools. So this is by grab-and-go carts and in the form of that kind of equipment. It's filling it with nutritious foods and allowing students to enter into the cafeteria, grab a healthy meal, and then head to class where they're more likely to learn better because they were able to eat a nutritious and healthy meal. And to your point, they can become those engineers and do all those STEM work if they're fed. So that's one of the programs from a nutritional perspective. From a physical activity, there's a couple. NFL Flag in School and then Root for Her are two programs that we're really proud of that we've implemented. They offer flag kits for students, both boys and girls, to find a new and fun way to be physically active, maybe aside from their PE offerings or whatever else might be at school. And that's been a really fun one. And then third, really the program of Youth Insights is gathering data from our youth council. So one of the really unique things about Gen Youth is not only do they have a board of CEOs and partners, but also of about 19 students of youth who sit on board with us and tell us what they're seeing. What is happening at school? What don't they like? There are surveys that are sent out, and they have this amazing saying that's, if it's about us, don't do it without us. And I remember that really hitting me the first time I heard that and sat on the board with them. And you can tell. They're telling you what they need, and they're saying things like, the PE programs right now are failing us. So Gen Youth is here for them, for all 55 million students, and that's kind of where our programming has started. And really, any other future programming we do will include those amazing youth council members of ours who've really paved the way.
Awesome. Rich, how about you?
So maybe first starting with kind of internally and then moving to the external partnerships, but we hear from young people that use our platform and hear about the positive experiences they have. So as we're trying to address this youth mental health crisis, providing a positive outlook for them and a place where they can go and find positivity and inspiration, whether it's planning a Sweet 16 birthday party, a homecoming, Halloween costumes. And I raise all those because my own daughter has used it for just those purposes in the last few weeks. But we're not mental health experts, so we need those partnerships. We need to work with those experts, and so similarly, we've worked with other groups, for example, the Youth Mental Health Corps, right, and finding those peers, right, because in addition to traditional therapy, having other types of approaches and including other youth in those programs, one, sometimes can resonate really well, but also two, provides a pipeline to address the mental health workforce shortage. So that's one example. Another example is kind of looking more closely within our industry. Pinterest is a founding signatory of the Inspired Internet Pledge, which is intended for platforms and tech companies to commit to certain principles, basically based on three pillars, that they will tune their platforms for well-being, ensure that the delivery of services taking mental well-being in mind. Two, listening to those that have had bad experiences or may have been harmed from online experiences, and then again acting to tune the content and services that they provide. And then three is the collaboration piece, and having opportunities to share lessons learned, to share best practices. Is just another example. And we have about 60 partnerships that take a variety of different approaches because we want to have that kind of holistic approach and be sure that we're covering every community and every approach. Another example is the Hidden Healing Fund, which again pairs up young people with the experts so they have a voice in how those programs are created and how they're implemented. But that also expands the reach of those programs and uses non-traditional ways of helping with addressing the mental health crisis. I think of I coach my daughter's softball teams, and sometimes the standard drills of hitting and catching just don't work. You have to incorporate different mechanisms, and so we use water balloons and frisbees and all those things. They don't realize they're learning how to throw or catch, but it's kind of using those different approaches. And also just one final one is the partnership with UNICEF and their coalition to address mental health globally, working with healthcare workers and with youth to reach over 50 million children in 150 countries over the next 20 years by providing enhanced research investment that results in better access and outcomes.
Awesome. Pat, tell us a little bit more about you.
Yeah, I think speaking of, everybody's been talking in threes, so I'll give you a three here as well. Our strategy is essentially Basics to Thrive, which is all of the things that we've talked about in terms of wraparound services, everything from hunger to transportation to helping to keep kids in school with aftercare, those kinds of things. In the middle is Innovations for Good, which are the ability for us to bring forward innovations and innovative technology to help teachers, students, and kids that are in asynchronous learning environments to learn and thrive. And and finally, the landscape of how we globalize this to the world. We have 3 core businesses. One is electronics, one is personal protection and shelter, and one is water. All 3 of them have partnerships and roles in taking care of the world. So we try to bring all those forward under one strategy, but all of them focus on youth. All of them focus on empowerment of youth, especially in Africa in our water business. It's not just getting water to people who don't have clean water every day or have to have their daughters walk to a mile and a half to bring water home. It's about the outcomes for those women when we provide that access to clean water. We want them to be able to go to school. We want them to be able to get a good education. So it's a fairly well-rounded strategy. But as it relates to STEM and STEM education, that's the piece that's going to drive the next generation of our workforce, a diverse workforce, and one that we can globalize across our 80 sites.
So I want to talk a little bit about supporting partnerships. Rich, you kind of teed this one up, so maybe we can start with you on this one. If you could partner with someone and they could help in your focus area, 1, what would you need? And then 2, which you touched on, is partnerships. So do they play a big role in your work? And if so, how big?
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about the magnitude of the mental health crisis, it's certainly not something any of us can do alone, and collective action is really critical, not only to addressing the problems, but also in having an outsized impact. So that's something we really focus on. The challenge we face, of course, is 2 things really. Is first, again, as I mentioned, we're not mental health experts, so we need those experts. But in addition to those experts, we need the additional perspectives of the work that others are doing to kind of help inform the work that we're doing, so that we can put together those plans, act, and then have measurable and meaningful results. So that's really critical. The other challenge we have is just reach and scope. So there's so many communities out there that are in need of help and that in some ways may be difficult to reach. So one example is of another partnership, just to go back for a second, is the Mindful Life program, and what that does, a project, and what that does is it is focused on changing and improving the culture and the climate environment in the classroom so that kids feel safe and they feel valued. And it's very holistic in the sense that it covers the full spectrum: educators, parents, and kids. And their focus initially, and still remains, on Title I schools, but we've been working with them to expand their reach to rural areas as well. So hearing from folks in different places, in different communities, is really important, so we can ensure that we're reaching everyone in a way that's effective and meaningful.
Chelsea, what do you think?
Yeah, and before I talk about partnerships, I wanted to just touch on something that both Pat and Rich said, if that's okay, and it kind of shows how all of this is interconnected. In order for youth to be more well-balanced in mental health, they need that nutrition, they need that physical fitness, and it does show a correlation between students who are well-fed and who move have better mental health. And then similar, you're talking about access to water. It's such a basic need for everyone, and the fact that students are missing that is really crucial, and again shows sort of the work we could all be doing together. So I was going to make a call to action to you all, but maybe we're going to talk later.
Yeah.
But partnerships are really, really crucial to us as well. I mean, just look at how we were founded from the NFL and American dairy farmers. Like, think about how unlikely and random that seems. Who would have thought that NFL players and farmers would create something so beautiful called Gen Youth? So really a backbone of everything that we do. And we need more. And so to answer the question of what we need, I'll continue on the frame of three here and say, I think we need three things. One, to this group, it's friend raising. We'll talk about fundraising in a second, but friend raising is a concept we've been talking about as a group at Gen Youth, where we just want to connect. We just want to make friends. I want to be your friend. We want to network. That is your net worth. I think the last panel talked about this, because we know that being in a conversation and having these type of dialogues, whether it's here or whether it's offline, it's really where we get things done. We have so many partnerships. We have partnerships with Domino's, with Amazon Access, with Quaker, with the NFL, and we kind of want to continue that lens of friend raising. The two others are fundraising, of course. We can't do what we do. We're a nonprofit without the call to action to help us and donate. We have raised $200 million to date since our foundation, and that's all gone to help school meals and provide resources to schools. And so we're really proud of that, but there's so much more work to be done. We've helped about 41 million students to date, and there's still 55 students in the school population. So there's more work to be done, and so we would love your help and your donation as well. And the last is policy raising, I'll say, which is anyone here who might be in lobbying or policy who can help us make effective change within government, whether that's making the PE standards more standardized or offering more diverse and non-competitive options for girls and for boys in school, making a state and federal legislation on that, and even for nutrition standards. We would love to connect, so please find me after this.
I love the term friend raising.
Yeah, it's a
I
good
haven't
one.
heard that before. We are really partnership driven, and I mentioned Amy Nakamoto earlier in Discovery. That partnership gave us it unlocked scale for us. I told you the stats, and we're really trying to address some of those from an ecosystem approach, where we have the Delaware Foundation for Science and Math Education as an advisor. We worked directly with the Department of Education and the Secretary of Education to bring this partnership together. Those kinds of partnerships, to your point on policy, are key enable for the state to move forward. Yep. Another area in which we find partnerships is along our value chain. When you think about our customers and our suppliers, we're very like-minded in what we're trying to accomplish, both helping kids to stay in school and stay safe, social and emotional learning, those kinds of things, but also how do we help them to stay in school, get to graduation, and then either go to college, go to a trade school and get a technical degree, or go to work. All three of those options are great. They create wealth, and that's what we're trying to accomplish. So we work very closely with a number of partners, but they're handpicked so that we've got expertise in all of the different areas that we need to make a difference.
That's great. So we're racing to the finish line, but I want to make sure that I get this last point of impact in, and I want to give you guys an opportunity to leave us with a couple words also. So let's talk about impact. We've talked about partnerships and the support. So what about impact? So that's the big question. Chelsea, I'll come back to you. How do you know you're making a difference? How do you know you're making an impact?
Yeah, I think we rely a lot on the data to tell us how many schools we've helped and how many students we've helped. So I've shared it, but I'll just highlight it again. We've helped over 76,000 schools, which is a great number, and we would love to keep that growing. But that shows us and tells me that we've been successful. There's some of that impact there. And in those schools, 41 million students. So we know there's reach, and we know there's help. And as a result, we know that those students who have graduated have came and told us through these surveys that they were learning better because they got meals, or that they wouldn't have had breakfast if it wasn't provided through one of those resource programs. So to us, the impact is both in that measurable data, but also in the qualitative surveys that are given to us. And there's a way that we can cliche think about it, but we'll know that the work is done when the only hunger a student has is the hunger to learn.
Rich, impact?
Yeah, so a couple of things. First of all is feedback. I and Pinterest are a firm believer in having feedback from our users, and we hear from young people, both in terms of see from the data, but also in terms of hearing from them, that it provides a place where they can find community, find support, with similar interests, ideas, backgrounds. So that's something that we have seen and continued here, and we want to continue to calibrate that, and also with our partners as well in terms of the feedback that they're hearing. So we're getting it both kind of directly and indirectly is really critical. A second piece is, and Chelsea and I were talking about this before, is we've implemented new tools that allow you to have settings to search by skin tone and hair pattern and body type. And so again, to better the experience, to help it feel more connected and more positive, and address some of those contributors to mental health, such as loneliness and alienation. So providing those opportunities to connect the community to address that alienation is really important. And we've seen the engagement when those settings are used, that the engagement just goes up significantly because it makes it so personal to them and improve the experience.
Can I note on that really quickly? Because we did talk about this. 15-year-old me didn't have that feature, and I just am so grateful for that, because you're looking at a child now who can see themselves, their hair color, their skin color on your platform, and that's going to benefit their mental health as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Speaking of that, from a data perspective, I think we've reached almost 80,000 students, about 2,500 teachers and educators across the state through our partnership with Discovery. But it also helped us do another thing, and that is, kids want to see people that look like them to be able to envision what they can do when they grow up. And so we worked with the STEM Careers Coalition to have them come in and tape the day in the life of an engineer, an African American engineer, or we have a young woman who just graduated from tech school. She's an elevator repair person on our site, and just as down home and as friendly as you could be, and that came across to kids. I hear it all the time. I want to be like her, So these kinds of things, helping kids to see who they can be, is really key. So that's a driver for us. But it's a data point. It's hard to measure big partnerships and even small ones. But if you look at the outputs, those are the outputs. But the outcomes are recruiting is up for new apprenticeships at the experimental station at DuPont. We have a stronger partnership with the Delaware Workforce Development Board to try and drive some of that. So, those are the outcomes that you really can't measure. I mean, I guess you could over time longitudinally, but we just see what we see, and we try to drive those places where we feel like we're making a difference.
Great. Okay, to close us out, we're going to go very fast here. I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds. Give us some last thoughts, what you want to leave the audience with. Rich, let's start with you.
Okay, well, Chelsea already touched on it, so I'll just keep this very brief, right? The linkages are so critical. When we're talking about youth mental health, you can't have that if you don't have physical health and well-being. If you're hungry, you're not going to be in a good mental state. So many connections. And if you don't have educational opportunities, you're not going to have good mental health either. So I think just those linkages, those abilities to kind of see beyond the areas within where we're working is so critically important. So thank you for the inspirational, insightful conversation today.
Yeah.
And thank you, Joseph.
Same, I'll stay with the linkages. This is a panel about youth, so when we're talking about youth programs, let's include them in the conversation. Let's take some of that inspiration from our youth panel that says, if it's about us, don't do it without us, and keep them the forefront of all of our initiatives. And thank you.
Absolutely. One thing that I've really noticed is the amount of impact that we have is dependent on the number of volunteers that we have within our company, and dependent on the board service of some of those volunteers within the state. They're the ones that see these kids every day.
Yeah.
They're the ones that drive the impact or help to drive the impact, and they're community organizers as well. So it gives us leverage to be able to carry causes forward in a more meaningful way.
That was excellent.
For that perfect time.
The perfect time. Yes. Excellent. One housekeeping note, I have to say this, being a part of communications, that you have to be following us. If you aren't, go ahead and do it now at USCC Foundation, all channels. Let us know how we did. Let us know how you're enjoying the conference. And then, of course, we'll have this session on YouTube soon, along with some of the others. So make sure you're following us, you're interacting with us, and then you'll get an opportunity to watch us again on YouTube. So I just want to thank the panel again for a great session. I appreciate you guys, and thank you all again for joining us.
Thank you.
Good job. Good job, guys.
Well done.
Thank you.